Hello everybody, I'm Lexi Lombard and I am going to be ranking the best books that I read in 2022. I just ranked my 5 least favorite books, the worst books I read this year. That's already on my YouTube channel. They're the books that disappointed me the most, the ones that I was so widely recommended and then didn't understand why they were so popular. These are a stack of books, my top 8 books that I read this year, the ones that impressed me, that I can't stop thinking about, that I can't recommend enough. And without further ado, let's get started with the 8 best books I read in 2022. Ranking in 8th place, but truly one of my favorites, and I haven't stopped thinking about it, is a Jeffrey Eugenides book, and you may be familiar with Fresh Complaint or The Virgin Suicides. One of my favorites is Middlesex, and this is a book that takes place across 3 different generations. You initially get to know the grandparents. They're in Greece and they're immigrating to America, which how do I explain this? Okay, and then they have kids, their kids have kids, and we get to know the granddaughter. And the granddaughter doesn't understand why something is off, and there's a family secret that the grandparents have been keeping, and you watch this secret unfold. This is an epic. It's just like the grandparents are so flawed, but I love them so much. And I've really grown to love everyone in this. It's kind of dark, it's a little twisted, and it's slow burn. But if you have the attention span, this is certainly worth it, and it won a Pulitzer Prize for a reason. Now, rank 6 and 7 are kind of interchangeable. I love them the same, but I had to make a decision. So ranking in number 7 is Mariana Enriquez, The Dangers of Smoking in Bed. This is a collection of short stories, which is one of my favorite formats for a book. I love something that I can chew into a single story and then it ends and I get another story that's written in the same style because it's the same author, but just an entirely different plot line. And all of these stories are a little superstitious. They've got some either religious or spiritual or witchy element to it. This is the only book I've read by Mariana Enriquez, but I highly recommend The Dangers of Smoking in Bed. I remember the first time I read an Ottessa Moshfegh book. She wrote My Year of Rest and Relaxation. That was the first time I ever read a novel by a female that had these more disgusting elements to it. I always think of women as writing something pretty and sparkly and beautiful, and seeing the honesty of something a little bit more foul impressed me. This has that in it, but everything's a little bit more magical. This is a collection of stories that you're reading and you don't really know what's real, you don't really know what's not. You'll understand once you start reading it. It's also quite short, so I powered through it quite quickly. Yes. Smoky, carnal, dazzling. It's so original. I've never read a collection of stories like it. I also think the cover is kind of funky. I am definitely a person who judges a book by its cover. I think that's why I haven't read any romance books, really, is because they all have the worst covers. When you go into the bookstore and you see the romance section, you know the type of covers I'm talking about. They're just so bad, and I don't want to be caught dead holding them. I have an ego, okay? And I have to protect it. But anyway, I do like this cover. Ranking in at number 6 is I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jennette McCurdy. Really enticing, curiosity-provoking title, like, excuse me, what's wrong with you? And you get to know Jennette McCurdy and her relationship with her family and her career and her life story. She's really interesting, such a fantastic writer, really smart, funny, like definitely copes with humor, but is incredibly therapized. Is that a word? Like someone who's been through a ton of therapy. And the first half is before her mom has passed, second half is after her mom has passed. And you get to know how she began her acting career. One of her most famous roles was playing Sam and iCarly, a Nickelodeon show, if you're not familiar. Grew up on it. And you know what? I never paid much attention to her, and now I'm such a fan. She's a really impressive person, and she came from a really hard background. Her life was not easy, and she still seems like she's getting a grip with it. This was a quick read. It's dark, but there's a ton of humor in it, and I love something dark and funny. Yeah, this is good. I was hesitant. I don't read very many celebrity memoirs. I think this is excellent. Ranking in at number 5 of the best books I read this year is Giovanni's Room by James Baldwin. Our main character is David, and he's visiting Paris from America, and he begins a romance with a man named Giovanni, and you get to see how this all unfolds because David is also engaged, and he has his fiancée in Spain, and she doesn't know that he is having an affair with a man that he met in Paris. It's sad and it's dark and intense and reflective but James Baldwin's writing, I mean, his words read like butter. He's so talented. He's so talented. It's funny to rave about, you know, one of the greats, because it's like, obviously James Baldwin was like one of the most famous, well, most world-renowned writers out there, but I didn't start reading anything from him until 2022, and I'm here to tell the tale that it's absolutely worth reading anything of his, and I plan on reading more. Ranking at number 4 is a dark book with little to no humor, and this is Joan Didion's The Year of Magical Thinking. I actually read both of these books in the same vein. I was doing a 24-hour reading challenge on YouTube, which if you want to go watch after this, essentially I just recorded 24 hours of reading, not trying to read for 24 hours straight, but every time I was reading I would set a timer up until 24 hours, and I ended up reading only sad books, which, I mean, this is the first year after my mom has passed, so the fact that all of my favorites have been these kind of twisted, dark, grotesque, slow burn, fever dream-esque books is not really surprising, because I think that's a reflection of the headspace that I've been in. This was supposed to be my year of rest and relaxation, not in the Ottessa Moshfegh version, but in the sense of I wanted this year to just chill. I had very little career ambitions for myself. I just was like, you need to heal. You've gone through an intense loss, and this is your year to heal. And it's just interesting to see where, like, the type of books that I could level with, because some of my least favorite books, you'll have to watch the worst book video. You can tell I was feeling things so deeply, so if I was reading a book that wasn't getting super intense, I was like, this isn't doing it for me, like I need more. Anyway, this is the saddest book on a personal level that I read all year. Oh, okay, so Joan, this is a biography from her. This is not a fiction novel. She lost her husband one night at their house during dinner. He dropped dead of a heart attack, and that's exactly what happened to my mom. So very, very, very close to home. And this is her year following his death. And oh, this book just carved out my heart and every other organ and left me so exposed and vulnerable in a really uncomfortable, sad, scary way. This is the power of books, my friend. This is the power of books. The fact that I was having physical, visceral reactions to shapes on paper. Words are so powerful. It's so crazy. I experienced my mother's death all over again reading this book. It was depicted so well. Another great for a reason. She's so good. She's so good. This woman is a legend, and may she rest in peace. My God, this book really killed me and brought me back to life. It was a lot. Number 2 did the exact same thing, but not in a way that it was my story. I was reading someone else's. But first we have ranking in number 3, which was Michael A. Singer's The Untethered Soul. This was the brightest and lightest book I read all year. It's not a novel. It's a self-help book, I would say, and this is fabulous. If you're an anxious person, I highly recommend this book. Even if you're kind of a depressed-leaning person, I highly recommend this book. If you're feeling a little stuck, if you need a little kick in the butt, you need to be pushed off the diving board, whatever, you just need that extra push, this book will give it to you. He breaks down really actionable steps to be free, and it's such a friendly reminder to know that this is our life and we get to handle things and react to things exactly how we want, and we may have trained ourselves to behave one way or react one way to something, but maybe it's not the best way. And here are some easier, more positive ways that we can respond to things and ways that we can spend our time that are going to add joy and enthusiasm and freedom to our lives. I want to read it again. I gave it to a friend. I'm like, come on, give it back. Once he gives it back, I will read it again, because I was definitely going through that book with pens and highlighters, making marks on all of the things that I felt were so important. If you haven't read this, truly, I can't recommend it enough. Now, number 2 is a book that I had on my to-be read list for quite some time, and I'd always heard that it's so triggering and it's so sad that it's not even worth reading because it's so painful. I'm like, I did this. Can it get worse than this? And in a way, yes, but also in a way, no. If I didn't have data of all the books that I read where it can tell me that my favorite types of books are medium-paced, reflective, dark, sad, emotional books, I wouldn't say that that's my favorite type of book, but clearly that's what I read a lot of. So I was thinking to myself, how bad can this book be if this is what I'm used to reading? So anyway, it was on my to-be read list for quite some time, and then I kind of put it off because I thought, okay, maybe it really is so intense that I can't handle it. I loved it. It's a beautiful tragedy, it's a beautiful life story. There's so much love, there's so much pain in it. And this is Hania Yanagihara's A Little Life. Now this is a thick one, okay? Although I will say that I think I read this faster than Middlesex. This took a long time though, and this is the story of 4 boys, Jude, Willem, Malcolm, and oh my god, is it JB? It takes place in New York City. All of the boys ended up going to Yale together, I believe, and then they ended up in New York, and so it begins when they're maybe like 25, 26, and you get to see it through their 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, and all of the people that they encounter. And Jude's come from such a hard life, but so is Willem, and just the friendships that they make along the way. And I'm not giving anything, like I'm giving a really vague synopsis because the juice is in the details, like the love is in the details, and this is a life story. So you get to know everyone and love them so deeply, and this book reads like a movie. I watched this book play in my head so vividly that I am wondering if I need to go to the Netherlands to see the play that they're performing of this. It was in New York, and now I'm pretty sure it's in Amsterdam. And I'm so tempted. I wanted to give this to myself as a Christmas present. I was like, you have to see it. You have to see this live. Oh my god, there's so many life milestones that happen within it. I mean, yes, every trigger imaginable is brought up. I mean, truly everything. I look it up because I would be listing off things for days. However, this is one of the most beautiful tragedies I've ever gotten to read. And last but not least, the best book that I read this year, the best book, in my opinion, that I got to encounter in the year 2022 is Laura Lynn Jackson's Signs. Now, if you have lost a loved one, a friend, a family member, or maybe you're afraid of the afterlife, you might be afraid of death, read this book. Oh my god, this is the secret language of the universe. The first half is a collection of stories of people who are communicating with their crossed loved ones. Stories of their mom sending them signs, or their children, or anyone. It's chicken soup for the soul. Laura Lynn Jackson, the author, is a medium. She has passed an 8-step quintuple blind test to become a certified research medium. Yeah. If you're a skeptic, she's the real deal. Okay, this woman has a gift, and I believe her. And she helped me. Okay, so sorry, I got ahead of myself. The first half is stories of people connecting with their lost loved ones, their crossed loved ones, their past loved ones. They use the term crossed in this book in the sense that they've just crossed to the other side. You know, they're still here, they're just in another room. The second half of this book is how to develop your own language with your crossed loved ones. And this has helped me develop a language to speak to my mom, to speak to my grandparents, to speak to my friends that are in the other room. And this book has helped me in ways. This book actually changed my life. And that's why it has to be number one, because I am different since reading this book. This book followed a book that I read last year. I read this at the top of the year. The last book I read last year, I believe, was Proof of Heaven, and that is a surgeon, I believe, who has gone into a coma and he comes out believing in heaven. I mean, he's a complete atheist, comes out of this coma and writes this book called Proof of Heaven, because he's like, I'm a doctor, I'm a science guy, like I don't believe in heaven, you know? And once I had read that, because I am such a little skeptic, and I had a friend who had recommended this book to me, but I'm like, science, yeah, whatever. I have friends that believe in science, but do I believe in science? Yes, now I believe in science. Between Proof of Heaven and science, I'm a believer, and I can't thank her enough. I've given this to friends who have also lost people, and it's something so special. I would love and hope to meet her one day and maybe get to have a conversation. That would really mean a lot to me. So those are the best books. I will have them all linked down below so you can shop them and get them for yourself so you can read them. I'm also on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, all the things. I'll have a link down below for that as well. And I'm the host of the Alexi podcast. New episodes out every week. And if you want to check out the worst books that I read, that's also on my channel. Subscribe if you want to see more. I'm simply dipping my toe into the world of BookTube. If you like it, let me know. If you like these books, let me know. If you see this collection and you think that there's others you think I would like, give me recommendations in the comments down below. Let's chat. Happy almost New Year, if it's not 2023 already when you're watching this, and I will see you guys later. Bye.